you wrapped up your education at UPEI in the 70s, and in the book here, you talk about in that era from the 70s and up through until the 90s. You talk about some pretty formative moments in PEI's conservation history, especially in terms of legislation that was established. Do you remember being involved in, and maybe you could touch on a couple of the specific ones that you talk about in Time and Place here, and maybe you can make that setting kind of real for listeners?
I think one of the big things that happened there in the early 70s was the establishment of the Island Nature Trust.
Yes.
And there were public meetings questioning, building a hotel out at Drosh Pond or Blooming Point. A lot of people know the beach as Blooming Point Beach. So there were public meetings, and like Ian McQuarrie was one of the champions for doing nothing, for not building a hotel.
Sure. Yes.
But then, it took 5 or 6 years, and then the Nature Trust was established. So there was a couple of things. One was, would they have a national wildlife area there? And at the time, people thought that hunting would be not allowed, so it wasn't accepted. But then when the Nature Trust was formed, they acquired property. The government had bought the parcels that were going to be hotel properties.
Okay.
And so the Nature Trust acquired those, and it was established. And Diane Griffin was the first executive director.
And when was this?
1979.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so that was a big thing because, we didn't really have any conserved land outside of the national park. And we did have provincial parks, but it still remains the main issue for provincial parks is to provide recreation for people. It's not there. The conservation aspect is somewhat diminished in our provincial parks.
I remember going and hanging out at Cabot Park, just off of Malpeque Bay.
Yeah.
And that's like a little playground and a lovely beach. And there's some wild kind of like coastal, like Krumholtz spruce there and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, it's cut grass, right? For
the marram grass. There is a threatened plant. I think it's threatened.
Okay.
That's on the dunes there.
Okay.
It's called the beach pinweed. Yeah. And, of course, there would be piping plovers there.
Sure,
but you probably didn't notice them.
Plovers are, and piping plovers are a household name.
That's right.
Everybody knows, and I think adores the plovers.
That's right. Yeah. But you'd have to look for them to spot them, probably.
Well, they're very small.
Yeah, that's right.
And also, I grew up. Most of my life grew up in like the New London Stanley Bridge area, and across from the opening of New London Bay, there are these dunes. There's a sand spit of dunes, and I think that's like one of the most visited plover habitats. I mean, during Fiona, it got hammered.
Absolutely, yeah.
But and there's signage up and things like that. So the Island Nature Trust got established in the late 70s, going into the early 80s, and basically the strategy was proposed to amass funds to purchase like high conservation value tracts of land.
That's the idea, yeah. And at the time, in the early 90s, I think, there was a challenge to set aside 10% of the land. And this was like a national, international goal.
Yeah.
And anyway, it was decided that PEI would protect 7%. Because that was all the public land we had.
Right, yeah. There you go.
So,
done and dusted.
Yeah, that's right. So anyway, Gilbert Clements was the minister at the time of environment, and he was, he wanted to make great strides at getting that done. So right away, a number of properties were designated that had been identified earlier by Ian McQuarrie as being very important.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, the legacy of some of these people is still is pretty formative.
Yeah, that's
Or
right.
where would we
Yeah.
be if it wasn't for some of these early leaders?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And you're still active in Nature PEI?
Yes. Not sure when I went to my first Nature PEI meeting. It was formed in 1969.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
it predates the
yeah,
Nature Trust.
Yes, and it was formed by a bunch of people, older ladies who, or maybe they were younger than I am. I don't know at the time, but they wanted to have a convivial society where they could look at birds and talk about wildlife and flowers and that sort of stuff, and visit and have field trips. So that was the important part, was to have field trips. And it was suggested by a guy who was working in the national park at the time. His name was Rick Howie. And so anyway, it was formed, and they had like bylaws, and they had an executive, and they planned a lot of field trips. At some point, then that evolved into having meetings with public lectures, that sort of thing. Yeah, so I think I've been a member since about 1973.
Okay.
Yeah, and I find it's a great organization just because you meet like-minded people who are
Certainly
very interested in wildlife, all species. Yeah,
Sure.
like the plants, the animals.
Yeah, and people kind of go on field
trees.
trips together, and they learn, they kind of bolster their identification skills and just have a good time.
Some people there would be, consumptive users that would maybe fish, hunt, or trap. But most of them, I think, most members are maybe not into that. But
sure. Yeah. I mean, hunters also play a critical role.
Yes, that's right. And like the Wildlife Federation has been going. Well, at one time it was called the Fish and Game Association, and it was established in the early 1900s by legislation. And they were enforcement officers. Any member could be an enforcement officer.
Okay.
Or was.
Oh,
Membership
wow. Okay.
gave them that. Yeah.
On.
And so even like into the 60s, some members, felt they could arrest people, for instance.
Okay. Yes. For poaching.
So that's right. So I think that changed with the new Fish and Game Protection Act.
Sure.
But, that was quite interesting. Yeah.